Another cold, wet day at the Kia training grounds ahead of tomorrow night's massive Eastern Conference matchup between your Toronto FC and the Chicago Fire. Gareth Wheeler with you. The point has been made all week long for Toronto FC. The points of emphasis: clean up mistakes and be more clinical in front of goal. That seems to be the recipe to turn the draws into 3 points for Toronto FC as they move forward during the early stages of the season. The chances certainly continue to come. Back-to-back weeks, Toronto FC flying in the attacking third, 20 shots against Atlanta and 19 in the loss to Columbus last week. And so clearly the action in front of goal is going to be all important ahead of the game against the Fire. This game in Chicago coming into town, it's about really one player, Bastian Schweinsteiger, one of the best players of his generation. He's won just about everything there is to win in the professional game. He's won a World Cup, a Champions League, multiple Bundesliga titles, and his influence has been plain to see with the Fire through 3 matches. Chicago's picked up a point, at least a point, in all 3 games he's played. He's already scored 2 goals, and his influence all over the Chicago Fire side, which is a completely different team than we've seen in recent years. The Chicago Fire team is very good, but it's all about Schweinsteiger coming to Toronto. Here's head coach Greg Vanney's thoughts on what he's seen from Schweinsteiger thus far.
He's very smart about how he moves around the field and how he can get his touches on the ball, how he can find himself in areas where he's facing forward or he can play forward. Very, very good passer of the ball. So, on a half turn, he can put somebody in. When he's actually facing, he can slide balls between lines. And so, I don't think he's necessarily the out-and-out true sort of attacking midfielder that, you see in some of the teams in MLS. He's a little bit more of a guy who likes to see the ball when he can really face forward, and he organizes himself in a way that he can really face forward.
Never mind recent results between these 2 teams, because in recent years, the Chicago Fire has been one of the worst teams in MLS. This group is vastly improved, which leads us into our keys to the match. And we're going to start things off with manage the midfield. One of the reasons why they're so improved is the midfield trio, all new this year to the side: Dax McCarty, Juninho, and Schweinsteiger. It's going to be a true challenge for Toronto FC's very talented midfield to deal with the threat of those 3 players. None of them are players that will overrun a group, but they're very economical in their movement, very intelligent in their passing. So Toronto FC is going to have to maintain a strong positional sense over the course of 90-plus minutes. It's a game that Michael Bradley, the captain, will relish. He's played Schweinsteiger before, as recent as the 2014 World Cup, when Germany was in the same group as the U.S. men's national team. Here's Michael Bradley on how important the midfield matchup will be come Friday night.
We want to push the tempo and on our home field, control things and be good with the ball and really dictate how the game goes. Obviously, I'm sure they have ideas of their own in terms of wanting to do a lot of the same things, and on the day, whoever is sharper and better and more committed, and whoever has more guys that have good nights, that typically goes a long way towards determining who wins.
The second key to the match: beware the counter. With teams sitting back, playing much more defensively this campaign against Toronto FC, you need to be wary of all time of the counter punch. The Chicago Fire have all kinds of pace coming down the flanks, and they're going to try to expose the Toronto FC wingbacks playing high. It requires an incredible amount of running for the Toronto FC outside players, but we saw it last weekend in Columbus. The crew sat back and they attacked with pace. So Toronto FC will have to be very wary of the attacking threat on the counter by the Chicago Fire. And finally, the third key to the match is pick up the tempo. At times, Toronto FC have been very patient, which is good, which is an absolute positive, but making sure you mix in the tempo, when to press high, when to sit back, when to move the ball quicker, maybe play some 1-2 touch football. It's going to be extremely important. This is how you're going to break down an opposition who's really going to sit back against you, and maybe be a little bit more brave, take on a player or 2 on the dribble. I just think it requires a little bit more speed and pace in the attacking third to inevitably break down a defensive opponent. So that's going to be big come Friday night. A few news and notes from training. Jason Hernandez was a full participant in training on Thursday for the first time. He will not be in the 18 come Friday night, but he's on the road to recovery, and we will see him make his Toronto FC debut sooner rather than later. Drew Moore is about 2.5 weeks away from reappearing in a Toronto FC uniform. He has an appointment scheduled for next week. He's already been diagnosed with his heart condition. That is good news. After the procedure, it'll only be a week or two before he will be back suiting up for this Toronto FC team. And Greg Vanney confirmed again today that Chris Mavinga is still 2 weeks away. Other than that, there is the chance that we will see this exact same starting 11 for Toronto FC that we saw last weekend in Columbus. Vanney could make the change, bringing Osorio back in the team, bolstering the midfield, but that remains to be seen. We're looking forward to this marquee. It's a premier Friday night matchup under the lights at BMO Field. The Chicago Fire and your Toronto FC, a 7:30 p.m. kickoff you can watch on TSN.